Hi, it's Dougie Wood, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to automate Microsoft Forms to Microsoft Excel. I'm not just going to be talking about how to power automate Microsoft Forms, but I'm also going to be talking about how to power automate Excel. So we end up with an overall solution which is about how to power automate Forms to Excel. So the first thing I'm going to do is make my Microsoft form. Now, if anyone's not used Microsoft Forms before, it's a product inside of Office 365, which is like a competitor to the likes of SurveyMonkey, where you can create surveys, polls, questionnaires, and not only use them for internal things, like gathering employee feedback and things like that, but you could also use them for external things and sending them to customers and suppliers, contractors, things like that. So if you wanted to get, say, customer feedback or project feedback or something like that, then Microsoft Forms is perfect for that. Now, all I've done is navigated to office.com. If I search for the app Forms, within here, this is going to take me to the Forms Designer page. Now, I just need to now create my new form. So I'm going to click on New Form. And that's then going to open up my Form Designer. Now, Microsoft Forms is really simple, really easy to use. It's so simple. It's trying to take it out of the hands of a developer or someone who's got advanced technical knowledge and putting it into the hands of people that might not be quite so savvy with technology to create their own forms, surveys, questionnaires, things like that. And it's really simple, really easy to use. So all I need to do is give this form a name. So I'm going to call this my customer feedback form. You can give it a bit of a description if you wanted to. And now a little bit of AI will kick in as well. So it's seen sort of similar questions to this before. So it could automatically suggest to you things like, how likely would you recommend our product to a friend or colleague? What do you like most about the product? And things like that. So it'll automatically give you some questions, and all you've got to do is double click them to actually add them into your own form. But actually, I'm just going to create some myself. Now, you can either create choices, so this might be sort of a choice option, so you might be sort of saying, well, how would you kind of rate us, good, sort of neutral or bad or something like that. You could have text, which is free text inputs to sort of say, what do you think we should continue to do? Or ratings, maybe it's like a 1 to 5, or a date, so maybe it's like, when did something take place? When did you buy a product? What date did you notice there might have been a problem or something like that? So you can have date field as well. So it's reasonably simplistic. They're the 4 top kind of options you can add. Now, a lot of sort of like the complaints I hear about forms are the same as the kind of the pros and the compliments about forms, is that it's very simplistic. So if you're looking for something a lot more advanced than this, then you're going to be looking to something like Power Apps or something like that. Whereas if you're looking for a quick sort of survey form to knock together very quickly, then Microsoft Forms is the answer. So I'm going to create my own form here. So I'm just going to use a very standard kind of approach when it comes to giving feedback, which is the kind of what would we continue to work on, what should we stop working on, and what should we maybe do different in the future. So it's very much that start, stop, continue type of approach. So the first one, I'm going to put in start. What should we start doing? Now, you could make this a long answer if you're expecting quite a lot of text. You could make it required, which means that you have to submit it before saving. And you can add things like a little sort of image or something next to that if you wanted to kind of illustrate this. The next one, I'm going to choose some text, and it's going to be my stop. So, what should we stop doing? And the final one is going to be what should we continue doing? What should we continue doing? Now, also with a lot of these types of forms, I would often ask to include the likes of a quote as well. So you can use branching inside of Microsoft Forms as well. So if you wanted to, you could actually branch to this. So say, for example, you had a choice question and the choice was something like, would you recommend us to a friend? If it said no, then maybe you branch to a page that says, sorry about this, can you provide us a little bit more sort of information? It might be sort of a text box or something like that. Whereas if it said yes, then maybe it bounces to another page where you're asking them to provide a quote that you can use on your website. So Again, this is something which is commonly done inside of feedback forms. Now we can also style this up, so if we wanted to have our own kind of custom theme, we can create our own custom theme with colors, logos, things like that. Or there's some pre-built kind of ones, so ones with sort of jazzy kind of looking backgrounds and things like that. And you can find something which looks quite sort of nice like this. And once you're happy with that, you can actually click on the preview option across the top, and you can see what this is going to look like. So as I say, you can change the sort of background colors, you change the sort of the header color, the logos, things like that. But I'm not going to go into too much detail about Microsoft Forms in this. It's more about the actual automation that I'm going to be thinking about. It's also worth noting though, just whilst I'm here, you can click on that mobile button and you can see what that Microsoft form looks like inside of here as well on a mobile phone. So now I've got my form created. Sometimes when I go into preview mode, it's also worth just double checking that I can submit data. So I think you should start offering free, I don't know, samples or something like that. What should you stop doing? Stop emailing newsletters weekly, or something like that. Continue the great service that you offer. And then quote, you could just say something like, your company is great and helped me save money on XYZ, whatever it is. Then you click on submit, and that's then going to submit that feedback form. Typically, they would get a little message say, thanks, your response has been submitted. And as I say, you can customize that as well. So if you wanted to customize a little something, say, thank you, we'll be in touch, or thank you, your feedback's important to us, or whatever it is, you can customize this message as well. Cool, so there I've got my form created and submitted some data into it. And if I now click on my responses area, you can then see my responses have appeared in here. There's some basic kind of breakdowns in here. You can view the results, and you can also open up in Excel. So if you want to do some advanced analysis, you can click on open in Excel directly from Microsoft Forms. So that's how we create the Microsoft form. Now I'm looking to use Power Automate to take that a little step further. So we might want to then grab that data and insert that into our own Excel document, which we've got existing somewhere else. So we don't want to use Excel document, which is coming with Microsoft Forms. And maybe there's some other bits that we might want to automate from this as well. So we might want to post a message into Teams, for example, to get people's attention that some new feedback has actually been submitted. Or you could send an email to a group mailbox or a couple of individuals, or both. You could have Teams messages and emails. So let's take a little look at that now. So first I need to navigate to office.com and then go to Power Automate. So Power Automate is our tool that we're going to use for automating this particular process. And actually, why make life hard for yourself? There's actually loads of different templates that Power Automate has out of the box. So if I go into templates in here, you can see there's loads of different Power Automate workflow templates. And actually, you can search based on multiple products. So I'm using Microsoft Forms and I'm using Excel. So I'm just going to have a little look for some templates which I could potentially use for this process. And actually, one of the top hitters here, really commonly used one, which I'm going to use today and show you, to fast track my automation process, I'm going to use this template, which is called Track Microsoft Forms Response in Excel and Notify through Teams and email. So when I select on that, what that's going to do is take me through to this connection page, and it'll just make sure that actually all the connections are in place. So I've got a connection to Excel, Microsoft Forms, Microsoft Teams, and Office 365 Outlook. So all of those ticks should be green before that continue button will then appear. If there was a red one for any reason, all you need to do is click on this three dots here, and then just it might say sign in or switch accounts, or basically just need to make sure that you're connected to those products properly. So let me click on continue, and that's going to then set up my workflow. Now it's given it a name up here, but I'm actually just going to rename this and say automate feedback to Excel from Forms. And then I know what that means then. It's a little bit shorter. Now you can see here the trigger and the actions are automatically set. So what it's going to be doing is when a new response is submitted into my form, it's going to get the response details. So actually this trigger doesn't give us all of the details of the form. You have to use the get response details. And this is a really top tip, that if you're trying to use Microsoft Forms to Excel and you're finding that you're not getting all the details from the trigger, you need to use that get response details to get the full information of the form. Then we're going to use an add a row into a table, which is an Excel connection, to add that into a particular file. And I'm going to store this in my OneDrive. I've already created an Excel document in true Blue Peter style. Here's one I've made earlier. And I'm going to upload that shortly into my OneDrive, and that's where I'm going to store the data. And then I'm automatically going to be sending a Teams message into my customer feedback team, as well as sending an email to myself as a reminder that the feedback has actually been submitted. So the first thing I need to do is configure this trigger. So on the drop down, I should be able to then see my customer feedback form appear because it's one I've recently created. So I'm just going to select on that, and then that's locked in place, the feedback form I've created. The next, I just need to pass through the form ID. So all I need to do is select here the customer feedback form, and the response ID will automatically have been set to the ID of the trigger. Then I'm going to go down to add row into a table. Now, the first thing I need to do is actually going to navigate back to office.com and go to OneDrive. And this is where I'm going to upload now my Excel spreadsheet. Now, I've already created an Excel spreadsheet for this called my customer feedback. So I'm just going to show you what this looks like. So just to save a bit of time, I've already created this in Excel, and you must make sure you've created a table. A very key point here is that you have got to make sure you've created a table, and from the table design tab, it's worth giving it a table name as well. So I've called this my customer feedback table, just so it's easier for me to find inside of Power Automate. So create your Excel table, make sure it is actually a table, and then you've given it a name. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to go to my OneDrive and I'm going to upload this. I'm just going to go to Files, and I've saved this inside of my Downloads area, and then I'm going to go into Customer Feedback. So then I've uploaded my customer feedback into here. And then from here, I'm then going to go to my Power Automate, and I'm going to select the location. So the location is just going to be my OneDrive for Business. The document library is going to be OneDrive. And the file, I'm just going to select from here, this file selector box, and I'm going to set my custom feedback. If I put it inside of a folder, I would need to drill down into these folders, but I've not put it into a folder just to make it easy for this example. So I'm going to select on customer feedback, and then this is where it's important that we've selected we've actually created a table. So I've created a table and I've given it a name. Now you might see if you've not given it a name, it'll just say table 1 typically in here, but I've given it a name just to make sure it's easy to find. So it's my customer feedback table. And then it's going to say, okay, well now I need to populate the columns. So if you remember inside of my spreadsheet, I had these columns were created on. So when it was created, the start, stop, continue, and quote. So these are the things from my actual form that I want to populate inside of my Excel spreadsheet. So the created on, I'm just going to go to here and just find a sort of a date or time, which it doesn't look like it actually gives me natively on here. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to use oops, we'll go back onto here. Going to use an expression, and I'm just going to use, oops, I've lost the box now. There we go. I'm just going to use expression UTC now. Now this is probably going to give it me in a horrible kind of format, but you can find plenty of ways you can format that date and time within Power Automate to give it the sort of time zone or the sort of date format that you would like it to show up as. But just to keep things simple, I'm just going to put that in as basic for now. And then my start, stop, continue is just basically my get response details. So if I start, I'm going to say the start option, stop is the stop option, and then continue is a continue option, and then you guessed it, the quote is just the quote option here. So now that's my Excel document populated once the workflow is run. So now I want to actually have a notification. So I actually want to see a notification come through when my feedback form is submitted. So this is where I'm then going to go into my teams area. I'm going to select the team I want to post into, which is my customer feedback team. The channel, so you can have different channels. So say, for example, I was posting this into my marketing team. I might have a channel specifically for customer feedback. But in this case, I've actually got a whole team for customer feedback just to make it easy. So I click on General, and then the message I'm going to include might be some of the kind of core details. So I might want to say, for example, message is, so the subject might be new customer feedback. And the message might be start, stop, continue. And you can see what I'm doing is this is going to be the static text, and this is the dynamic text it's going to pull through from the actual Excel table. So I'm going to say continue. I could use this, by the way, these connected from Excel, or I could use the get response details. It doesn't really matter. It's going to have both the sort of details from this. Actually, just to keep it consistent, I would actually just recommend. I've jumped the gun here a little bit, but I would actually use the get response details, just so we know it's going to be exactly the same data as what we're injecting into the Excel document, just so if something was to change in a split second inside the Excel document, we've got exactly the same data that's coming from the form. So I'm just going to click on start, stop, and continue. And then that's my start, stop, continue. So that's my feedback in there. So that's my Microsoft team now up to date, and now I might want to send an email. So I might just want to send an email to myself, and the subject will be new customer feedback. And then again, I'm just going to put into here start, stop, continue. And then I'm going to put into here the responses from Microsoft Form. So again, start, stop, and continue. So there we go. So now we've got an email sent. So as a quick recapper, it's going to trigger from our form being submitted. It's going to get the full details of the form. It's then going to add that data to an Excel document I've got stored in my OneDrive, and then it's going to notify the team, the customer feedback team, through Microsoft Teams, and it's going to send me a personal email as well as a reminder that this has been submitted. So now all I need to do is click on Save across the top. That's then saved my workflow. I'm just going to come back out of here now. And now I'm going to simulate this. So I now need to go to my Microsoft Form again. And I'm going to go to Preview. So this is what it would look like to somebody. And then I'm going to say Start. And say Start. Offering trials of your software. Stop. Chaser emails every week. Continue. Offering a face-to-face meeting to review sales options. Quote, you really helped me on this project. We will use you again in the future. Whatever it is. So there's just some example. So now I'm going to click on submit, and that's then going to submit my form. That's now submitted in the background. Now if I go back into Power Automate, this should trigger very quickly. Now you've seen, boom, there straight away. It's now triggered. If I go into the workflow, I can see the full details of the workflow that's run. So it's been submitted, it's got the form details, it's added the row to the table. So now if I go to my Excel document inside of OneDrive, go into a customer feedback. I did just have to refresh the page there for it to appear, but there we go. You can see it's created on, and as I said before, that's just UTC now. It's a bit ugly, but you can format that to look like whatever you like. You've got the start feedback, the stop feedback, the continue feedback, as well as the quote, all inside of our Excel sheet. Then if I go back to my workflow, I can see that I've posted into my Microsoft team. So I'm just going to open up my Microsoft team. So this is my customer feedback team, and you can see here we've got start, stop, continue. Now this does look a bit ugly. I'll admit this does look ugly when it comes through. Now you can format this with a little bit of work. You can format this. It's not too difficult. You can add subject lines. You can add text. You can even tag people. You can get sort of Teams tags to tag people to get them notified inside of Teams as well. But there's our notification, so our team can see that and be notified that that's it there in place. And then I've sent an email as well. So there you go, you can see that email that's then come through. Now, you can use Teams, you could message people individually inside of group chats, team chats, you could send emails to individuals, you could send them to shared mailboxes, or distribution lists of people. There's loads of different ways you could potentially get people's attention using this. I hope you found that useful. If you did, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more Microsoft automation tools and tips. If you've got any questions or suggestions for future videos, please use the comments feed below. Thank you.